Hey couples, it's Thursday night. That means it's time once again for date night. You might be wondering where my date is. Well, she's here. We are quarantining ourselves this time. She's in her office, I'm in my office, and it's not because of COVID-19. Tracy, we just needed a little bit of a break, right?
Yeah, couples, can you relate? I mean, it's a lot of time together. We just needed some space. Just kidding.
Well, but tonight we're talking about a topic that might be just perfectly timely because we're talking, Tracy, about giving your spouse the benefit of the doubt. So this conversation is great for couples who have maybe been at each other's throats for a little while here. Maybe the shutdown has just been driving them crazy. They're on each other's nerves. Their
Right.
patience is running short. So I think tonight's topic is good because we're going to give you some practical, uh, I don't know, rules of engagement, right?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I think people might be surprised at how important giving the benefit of the doubt is. And what we mean by that is that you're willing to be gracious towards your spouse, give them a pass when they maybe erupt or act a little irrationally for some reason. But giving your partner the benefit of the doubt is really important to a healthy marriage because if we don't, then we'll talk here in a few minutes about some unhealthy things that can start to happen in the relationship. And we could very quickly find ourselves in a place where we're on the brink of divorce because we're just don't even like each other anymore because we just only see the negative.
Yeah, so Trace, give an example of maybe a fight. I don't know if we're going to be vulnerable and share some of our own examples, but give an example of a fight where you're at each other, and what's an example of not extending the benefit of the doubt, and then give an example of what it looks like to give the benefit of the doubt, because maybe some couples don't even know what we're talking about. They didn't maybe see this modeled in their parents at home. So give us
Right.
paint a picture for us.
Yeah, I mean, even if we use some examples through this whole time of coronavirus, is me giving you the benefit of the doubt is like today. I know you're stressed today. You've had a lot of meetings, you've had a lot of things going on. We've had some frustration with technology and getting ready for recording things. And so, giving you the benefit of the doubt is I'm just giving you a little bit of space. Maybe if you've used a little bit of a tone of voice that wasn't quite as respectful, or I can see it on your face. I know you well enough to know when you're stressed, right? You don't look particularly happy. You look a little mad. So giving you the benefit of the doubt is I'm not picking a fight with you. I'm giving you a little bit of space. I'm being gracious and patient and just kind of, what do you need me to do right now? And that's what we'll do. Now, the opposite of that is, and I've been guilty of this certainly many times, when I know you're not in a great place, but instead of being gracious, I pick the fight and I'm like, I've had a long day too. And you can't treat me like that and quit looking at me like that and quit having that tone of voice with me. So see, then I'm now that's going to start an argument for us just based on how I'm choosing to respond to you being not in the best place.
So, couples, this might be a good time right now in the live stream just to maybe pause and ask yourselves right now, okay, wait, which one of us is better at giving the benefit of the doubt? And Tracy, I'll admit that in our marriage, you're probably a little better at giving the benefit of the doubt. But probably for some people, it's the husband is the one that's a little bit better at
Yep.
this. So it's good. It's good, couples, even just as we're getting warmed up for this date night conversation, to think in your own life, are we any good at this? Who's better at this? You know, try to be self-aware. We've talked about emotions and self-awareness. Try to be self-aware. You've got to be a little bit vulnerable for this topic because, Tracy, I would imagine in some marriages, one spouse does a pretty good job of this, and maybe sometimes gets walked all over by the other spouse, right?
Yeah, and I think just even paying attention to how many of our arguments start with just this simple thing. We just didn't give each other the benefit of the doubt. Instead of being gracious or patient, we just set our spouse up for failure by just jumping on him as soon as any opportunity we had.
All right, so Trace, let's talk now about what author John Gottman, calls the Four Horsemen. And when he talks about this, he uses this a lot in a lot of his books. What is he referring to, and how can couples use this in their own marriage to strengthen their relationship?
Yeah. So what's kind of interesting, even before I talk about that, I want to make sure that we think about it's called the fundamental attribution error. And this is what social psychologists have done a lot of study that feeds whether we're able to give the benefit of the doubt or not. That fundamental attribution error means when I make a mistake, I'm going to look at the outside factors that caused me to have that mistake happen. Like I overreacted and I yelled at you. Well, it's because I had a long day at work, or the kids were driving me crazy. But if you do something that makes me mad, I'm going to attribute it more to character flaws in you. I'm not going to give you the benefit of the doubt that maybe you had a long day at work. I'm going to say, like, see, you're just kind of a mean person, or you're just always impatient. So that's kind of this natural thing that we all have in us that we have to be aware of, that we'll give ourselves a pass. We'll be gracious to ourselves, but we're not very fast to be gracious to our spouse. And so what happens is, if we keep applying that fundamental attribution error, then what John Gottman talks about is what starts to happen in our relationships are these four horsemen of the apocalypse. And what he means by that is these four things that start to happen in a marriage can bring utter destruction to the relationship. And so this is what happens when we're not giving the benefit of the doubt. This is what happens when we start only focusing on the negative things in our spouse and attributing it to character rather than just circumstantial.
So let me try to summarize this. You're saying the fundamental attribution error, because that sounds like a very smart phrase.
Yes, it's not my word.
Yeah, that means that I give myself the benefit of the doubt. How do people say it? I judge my words and actions by my intentions, but I judge my spouse's words and actions by their words and actions. In other words, I give myself the benefit of the doubt because I'm in my own head and I know what I really meant, but I don't extend that same grace and favor to my spouse.
Yeah, like you're assuming that the mistakes your spouse makes are due to the faults that lie within them.
Yeah, that's good. So husbands, wives, that's a great one to pack away. Use that maybe at work, whenever you go back to work, because it'll make you sound really smart to say, that sounds like the fundamental attribution error.
Yeah, totally.
All right, so can we talk about the Four Horsemen now?
Yes.
So Tracy, talk us through these four things. And again, as couples are listening to this, think about in your own life if you're guilty of any of these things when you're in conflict, right? And sort of unwilling to give the benefit of doubt to your spouse.
So something's happened in the relationship and you're upset. The first horseman is criticism. So now you're just being critical of your spouse. Just, you're always late. You're so irresponsible. You're so impatient. You've got an anger problem. You just go to criticism, right? That's part of your way of attributing their faults and their mistakes to something in their character. Now, I don't know about you, but criticism's not fun, right? So if you're in a marriage where your spouse is criticizing you all the time, that's going to cause even more friction and fighting in the relationship.
All right, so that's the first one, couples, criticism. Think about it in your own marriage. Are you critical? I think that's pretty easy to get into. The second one, Tracy, is another C, and that one is contempt. Walk us through that one.
Yeah, so contempt is kind of a next level up from criticism, where when we have contempt for our spouse, now we're not only criticizing them and identifying all the faults in their character, but we're now kind of positioning ourselves to think that we're better than our spouse. We're smarter, we're superior, we're more well-rounded and more well-adjusted emotionally. And we kind of treat our spouse now with contempt, like, yeah, I don't understand why you're acting like that, because I would never do that.
Okay, so those two, criticism and contempt, are about me being on the offensive, right?
Yeah.
And then the next two are about me being a little bit more on the defense.
Right. It's kind of more than the next horseman is defensiveness. So if I'm married to someone that's critical and shows contempt for me, well, what's the natural reaction going to be? We're going to become defensive, because now I'm going to feel like I have to defend everything I say or do, or try to convince you that it isn't character flaws. I really just had a bad day. Like, why can't you see in me the things that you allow in yourself? So it's less defensive reaction, where now it's not even about, you realize that as I'm talking about these things, it's not about a conversation. It's one side accusing and thinking the worst of their spouse, not giving the benefit of the doubt. And the other spouse is feeling like, what choice do I have but to trying to defend myself?
Okay, so then when you get defensive, so again, some couples might be like, yeah, I'm the critical one, or I'm the one who shows contempt. Maybe the other, it's not always this clear cut, but maybe the other spouse is the one that says, yeah, okay, and I get defensive. And then it kind of becomes probably a vicious cycle for a lot of couples.
Right.
And then Tracy, the last thing then on the defensive side is probably defensiveness then eventually gives way over time to stonewalling. What's a stonewall?
Right. So maybe that's you guys in your marriage that describes like one or both of you just put up a wall and you just kind of refuse to engage. You know, maybe it's on one particular topic in your marriage that you just fight about all the time. Maybe it's money, maybe it's in-laws, and you just never make any room. And so maybe one of your spouse, the one spouse is like, I won't even engage or talk to you about it. I'm just going to shut you out and we're going to get nowhere. So again, that is not productive for a healthy marriage. If we start stonewalling or refusing to engage on certain issues, then we're never going to resolve them and they'll just keep coming around and around and around.
Okay, so let's say couples are out there wrestling with this. By the way, happy date night, everybody. What a great thing to talk about on a date night. We're really poking the hornet's nest now. But it's worth it. I think it's worth it to have language for some of this, because a lot of couples that we work with, Tracy, for them, they're like, man, it's just even helpful to have this language. Just even last night, we were working with a premarital couple, and they already see this in their relationship. They're not even married yet, so they're getting tools for talking about this, which is going to be so helpful for them in the future.
Right.
So for couples who are out there listening to this, getting a little panicky, like, oh my gosh, like this is exactly what we're dealing with, and I don't see any end in sight. I can't even imagine that we're going to get better at this, or that we're going to get over this, because we're pretty bad at some of this. So what I would say to you is just hold on there, because there's some light at the end of the tunnel. Tracy, what's the good news? What's the solution what's the antidote for these four horsemen? What's the solution for couples who are like, man, that is describing to a T what our relationship is like?
Yeah, I mean, I think it first starts with just recognizing that fundamental attribution error, right? That I recognize, like, okay, we're having an argument. How can I give you the benefit of the doubt right now? How can I not start ascribing terrible things about your character or focusing only on the negative things about you? How can I see a more positive or gracious light? But then I think the anecdote really is about just having good communication. That you're able to say, you know, I'm feeling this way because I'm feeling this way, and here's why. And having a conversation, like just basic good communication skills, that instead of just getting critical, instead of showing contempt and then the other person getting defensive, that you're just able to say, like, listen, I want to give you the benefit of the doubt. I hope you give me the benefit of the doubt, but here's why I'm upset. This is how I'm feeling, and here's why. That's what's going to open up then an opportunity for a conversation where both people are listening to one another and caring what the other person's saying, rather than feeling like they have to be on the defensive because there's a character assassination going on and you know, motives being applied to your actions that you're not even intending.
Yeah, now some of you couples might be out there right now saying, okay, that just sounds really cheesy, really corny to think that you would be like, what I hear you saying is, or I feel this because. And this is something we've talked about in our marriage basics for years now. We talk about how important love is, how important trust is, and then how important communication is. So this is a skill that a lot of couples probably don't have. And so I'll just say, as someone who didn't have that skill either before I entered marriage, it works. It's so worthwhile to sort of step into a marital conflict with courage and clarity and vulnerability, right? To do what you're saying, Tracy, to just say, hey, here's how I feel, right? I feel like this, and because of this, but you're not trying to point fingers when you're doing that. You're not saying, right, I feel like you're a jerk, right, because you said this. You're identifying how you feel, right? The anxiety that's coming up, or the frustration, or whatever word, but you're trying to do it without assigning blame to the other person.
That's right. And then I think once you hear each other on why you're feeling what you're feeling, and you've extended the benefit of the doubt enough to give your spouse room to do that, then you can say, so how do we fix this? What are the solutions? What do we hope to get out of this conversation? Because I think that's for a lot of couples. If you go into a conversation recognizing the goal is to come out of it understanding each other and having a plan of action to avoid it from happening again, or avoid whatever you did that hurt your spouse's feelings, like you come out of it with some solutions, then it's worth the struggle. Because I know it can be hard to choose the skill, right? It's a skill. It's not something that some of us are born with and some of us aren't. Communication is a skill you can learn and can deploy in the right situations. And then so if we want to have a healthy marriage, what we have to be able to say is even on the simple thing of giving the benefit of the doubt can either set us up for success or failure. And then once we're in that conversation, to talk clearly, to use I feel statements, listen to one another, and then get to solutions, we'll find that it's worth the struggle because you're growing out of it.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you, Tracy, for giving your wisdom on this topic. So couples, there's your topic for tonight. Give your spouse the benefit of the doubt. You probably do it for people at work. You probably do it for people in the neighborhood, but maybe you've stopped doing it for your spouse for whatever reason. So work on that. Use those talking points, discussion questions below. There's another video down below if you want to watch the original video for this particular topic. And then one of the things I want to challenge you to do or encourage you to do is if you're watching on Facebook or on YouTube, in the comment section tonight, we would love to hear what topics you would love for us to cover in our upcoming date nights. We're probably going to do some more double dates. We're going to do some more of this kind of stuff. We're going to continue to cover topics on Thursday nights to help you sort of leverage this whole shutdown right now with everything and the coronavirus. Leverage it to strengthen your marriage. So Tracy and I will be back here next Thursday night. We hope to see you back for our date night next week as well. Have fun with this topic. See you next week.